Bonjour, bonjour les petits poussins. Welcome back to the 35 things I am unlearning at the age of 35. Those are my notes from rebuilding my life from the inside out. I think I've never also shared why I'm doing this, but let's just leave that for another topic. But today I am unlearning that silence always means rejection. Sometimes silence is information, and sometimes silence is protection. And I think what I want to do today is actually, I see it in two different instances in my life, or at least this is the first two that I'm seeing. And mind you, just to give you a bit of a heads up on how I record these episodes, I have a list of my 35 things. They're not in any specific order. I just wake up and I'm just like, all right, what is speaking to me today? All of them are speaking to me, obviously, because I wrote them down. But some of them are like, all right, today we're just going to do this one and we leave the rest for the next few days. This is actually lesson number 6. Attends, ouais, c'est ça, lesson number 6. So there's no particular order. There's no particular, this is more important than the other one. They're not necessarily linked to each other. It's just more a list of other things that I have been working on since last year, or like my biggest realization, and because I turned 35 this year. But yeah, 2025 was really just such a big fat mess, clusterfuck, shitstorm of so many different things that instead of just seeing it as a pain in my ass, I really started seeing it as like a fucking blessing, you know, like all the things that I wrote so far are like, mais en fait oui, because you've lived like that for so long and you've thought certain things and you've had certain beliefs and patterns that guided your actions and decisions throughout your life, and now it's like, oh wow, en fait we don't want to do that anymore. And so today it is about silence, meaning rejection. Two instances. I think first, not even two instances, it's one instance. I think the silence that I see in one big area of my life, which is relationships, dynamics. Like when I think of relationships in general, I never really liked silence. For me, silence meant that there was no interest, that there was no curiosity, that something was wrong. And I don't know if it's because at home it was too silent, or I don't know, you know, maybe it's that. I'm not connecting any dots or finding excuses or anything, but I don't remember much of my childhood, to be honest. I think I was very much in silence because I loved being with my books, with my writing, with my drawing, coloring, or just being in my bubble, first and foremost. And also when I was at school, I think I shared it, but I was bullied, so I wasn't having a lot of friends. I was having one friend, Jessica Vendreau. If you ever come here, I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you've survived as well. I'm pretty sure you did anyways. But Jessica Vendreau is my only friend. So we would see each other, but that would be it. And with my brother, we would all either play video games or build des cabanes, you know, like build houses in our rooms and stuff. But pretty much, I think I was always in my own bubble. And I developed this mechanism of being the sunny sunshine outward person. And also because I am this person, but I think that I also relied on it a lot because I never wanted to be bullied again when we changed school. And so, silence for me was always like, well, something's wrong with me. Because everybody out there is like playing, everybody's having friends, it's always loud on the playground. Why the fuck am I alone with my fucking books and just minding my business, you know? So I think that I saw it as like, okay, something's wrong. And it has evolved in me, being this outward person, the life of the party, everybody wanting to connect. And also because God made me this way. I'm not saying that I'm not this person. I am this person. I love that about myself. But yeah, I think I just, again, I saw silence as a rejection of me being a calm and quiet person. And so I then evolved into a lot of noise, okay? A lot of noise because a lot of people around me, I loved connecting people, you know? I remember in school, I was the one who introduced the handshake because I was like, I don't want to kiss each and every person because I don't know where y'all put your face, if you actually wash your face or anything. Germophobic un peu, hein? So let's just do something simple. We don't have to kiss each other. Ça me saoule. This was very French. But we don't have to do it. So, handshake, I did it. And après, same, again, being the life of the party and everything. And so, even in my relationship, silence was awkwardness. It's like, fuck, we need to, on doit meubler. We need to talk. We need to do things. We need to just say things because otherwise it means that something is wrong with me, you know? So it was never about people. It was always like just about something's wrong with me. I'm not showing curiosity enough. I'm not showing that I'm interested. Or maybe I'm not interesting enough. So, and then all these behaviors of being the clown, of making jokes, of again being the life of the party. I repeat this sentence because this is the only thing that comes to me, but that was really it. I'm not bragging. I was literally invited to parties, and maybe like now that I think of it, I'm like, you know, the entertainer. Voilà, let's put it this way: the entertainer, the one who's always got a good joke, a good story. The one who's always connecting people. Everybody knew me at school, you know? And the person who's always full of life, joyful, happy, positive, like this hasn't changed much, to be honest. Now I'm trying to be more mindful of my energy with that. But indeed, I think that I never liked silence. In relationship, I've never liked silence. You know, I always had to just, we have to talk. We have to, sinon, otherwise it's like something is wrong, okay? And even more so in romantic relationships. If it's like, if there's a silence, like, putain, what the fuck do we do? And so for me, I always took it upon myself to have that responsibility of being the initiator, of being the person who is asking the questions, who is suggesting outings, who is fixing problems, who is just, I initiate things as long as there's no silence. And this has followed me my entire life, everywhere. And I never really liked silence anymore. And I think that when COVID happened, I was like, oh putain, life, you know? And this was at the age of 30. So imagine between the age of, I would say, 8, 9 until the age of 30, it was constantly filled with fucking noise. No silence, no time for myself to actually think because everything is always working. The brain is working, the mouth is working, the body is working, it's always moving, but there's no time for such a thing called rest or calm or coming down from the excitement. No, it's always like go, 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 you know? And so when COVID happened, I was like, ah, mais c'est génial ça, 3 weeks of nothing, 3 weeks of not seeing people, not entertaining, not hyping, not asking questions. And obviously, I was also in a position in HR whereby I'm always talking. You know, I'm always asking questions about people, to people, understanding why they do the things they do, why they want to change jobs, and genuinely curious. You know, what started as something of I don't want to be alone anymore and I have to make friends, otherwise I'm not going to survive this thing called life, turned out to be something genuinely interested in people and genuinely interested in how people function, what they think, what their dreams are. And, you know, obviously you just develop that the more you have zero silence. You know, you become more and more curious. And I think I've always been curious anyways. But then when COVID happened, I was like, oh putain, yes, 3 weeks of holiday. Let's just turn our phone on silent. Silent mode since February 2020, I think. Ever since, my phone has been on silent mode. And so during those 3 weeks, I didn't answer messages or anything. And then we started the online thing and whatever. But that was really just like, putain, la vie. Oh la la, life is beautiful. Life is really nice when there's no silence. When there's no noise. Life is beautiful and there's no one outside. And I was like, oh my God, I was really craving that. You know, I was really craving that. And so I loved it, obviously. But then it also dawned on me because I'm like, fuck, en fait, if I don't initiate, then let's be honest, not a lot of people are initiators. Not a lot of people are considerate. And maybe this is part of another episode because I've been thinking a lot about this thing called consideration between human beings. But what I realized back then is that shit, man, 3 weeks and not a lot happened. And so it made me wonder how I have been building relationships all this time. If it was really built on something that was genuine, deep, honest. And I realized that it wasn't, because I've always known a lot of people. And I always told myself, oh my God, I have a lot of friends. But actually I didn't. You know, even in high school, being the entertainer is sort of like the center of attention. But I've never told anyone that my parents were in the middle of a divorce, that I was moving houses, that so many things had happened, but I've never shared anything with anyone because I didn't want to be the center of attention. I didn't want people to think that something was wrong with me. So I've always, I've always talked, I've always asked questions, and I've always made sure that in any conversations, nothing was ever about me, but also nothing was ever about the possibility of being rejected for being how I am and who I am and going through the things that I was going through. So when COVID hit, this was really like an aha moment. And it made me sad, to be honest. I remember being sad about it because I was like, fuck. And then this is the year where I learned that my dad had Alzheimer's. And franchement, my world flipped upside down because I was like, putain, can you imagine? Like, Alzheimer is really forgetting things. So this was a sort of also wake-up call, because I was like, I don't want to live a life where I don't really know people and people don't really know me. And so this has changed. I really made huge efforts to change this, to start leaving more space for silence in conversations, in dynamics, and also taking space from people, and not in an isolating mode, but more in a let's give some space, you know, because I am so eager to answer, to hype, to support, to be there for people, that I never learned to be there for myself, and I never let anyone be there for me. So I took a bit of distance, even in the way in the timing that I answer messages. And this was downhill from here, huh? Because I started like, yeah, I'll answer later. But later becomes one day, then a week, then a month, then a couple of months, and then a couple of years. And so I played, it wasn't even a game, but I was just so eager to just install some silence again that I took it a bit too far. And I mean, life happens, okay? When you start maybe being on this journey of understanding your own patterns and also taking some rest and from the noise that is constantly outside, then you also just, en fait, c'est la vie, okay? And you cannot always come back to people like, I'm so sorry for not replying and everything. Otherwise, you just start all of your messages like this. But anyways, my relationships starting to change as well, and I got more feedback. The relationship became deeper. I got to learn a bit more about myself in dynamics, relationships, and also with people, obviously. And I learned quickly that silence also doesn't mean rejection. Sometimes, indeed, it means information, and it means protection as well. And I started to take it as, okay, it is what it is, especially when you realize how much effort, how much consideration you put into any of the relationship that you have, and there's not a sort of like reciprocity in there. You're like, well, I've done my part. I'm not going to chase people anymore to be like, hey, don't forget about me. Please keep loving me. Just, I'll keep doing. And it's, again, going back into this thing of being a human doing, always doing, and you're never being. And so when you do too much, or when you keep doing, then people just also take it for granted. So you're like, well, so where do I fit? What happened? Like, yeah, where do I fit? What is what is the relationship? I'm losing my words, but this silence taught me a lot, you know, and I still practice it even now. Sometimes it's not, I mean, you're able to discern when it's awkward and when it's not. And I think that obviously when you meet someone, you want to make some effort. I'm genuinely interested about people. I'm not someone who's going to be like, yeah, well, I don't like your face, so I'm not going to invest. But I'm realizing also that I'm not really into chit-chatting, small talk, and because I think it's boring, honestly. I think it's really boring. And when you're 35, it feels like I'm old. But when you're 35, you're just like, let's just go into the real shit, you know? Not necessarily like, oh, let's talk about our traumas and everything. Absolutely not. But let's just be ourselves and let's just try not to, in French we say meubler la conversation, where it's like you put a lot of furniture in the house. Like, let's just leave the house empty and then we just build it with real elements, with real pieces of exquisite vintage furniture that we like looking at, enjoying and bathing into. You know, you don't want to have like cheap ass chairs and sit on them and then they're broken. No, you just want to, you know, make it your own. It's just like making your own home, right? I don't know why I went into this tangent of being in a house and stuff, but this is what I'm unlearning now, that silence means rejection. I think now silence means information and also protection. When I see the state of my relationship at this moment, and especially after what happened in 2025, I realize that what I've tolerated, I have tolerated it for too long. And that's why I love now giving some space. And a friend of mine said relationships are like elastic, you know, a band that you pull and that it relaxes, that it's pulled and relaxed. And I think this is like silence as well, because when you're in silence, you have space. You have space to realize, obviously, your own behaviors, your own patterns, and take responsibility for who you are and what you do in certain instances. But it also gives you information on who people truly are. And when you think of, and when I think personally of certain relationships, there's a big, fat, huge silence at the moment. I used to feel awkward about it at the beginning of, last year, but now I'm just like, well, this has given me so much information about, not necessarily about the person. Yes, I'm not going to say the person is bad, but it has given me information about the person and how considerate they are, or even just like how our values are clashing now. What used to bring us together now is separating us, because people are changing, people are evolving. And I used to think that this was something bad, that I really had to just maintain the relationship because for XYZ reason, or like the amount of time that we knew each other. But now I also do realize that, hey, people change, people evolve. I'll never be able to be the person that I was before 2025 because so much has happened. I really feel like a part of me is gone. Like when my dad passed away, really a part of me has gone and another part of me has emerged, you know, and another part of me is left, obviously, but there's another side of me that has emerged that I'm still getting to meet also. And I know that this version of me is not really being liked or accepted by a lot of people, and I accept that as well. And I think that's why I say that it is information, not only for you, because you realize where you are in your own journey as being a human being and experiencing life, but you also realize where you are in the dynamic with the other person. And it's just an acknowledgement, an observation, and a decision to be like, okay, how do I move from there? Knowing that you cannot betray yourself. And this for me is what's happening, is I really just don't want to betray myself with certain dynamics, because I've seen it, you know, I've seen it for the past few years. You always know, deep down you always know, even when you're not transitioning or whatever, you always know. But somehow, because of loyalty, because of safety, because of an identity that is so rooted in you, you just stay in said relationships and dynamics because it's easier, and because, let's say, confronting this inner knowing of en fait, this is not right, is gonna take a lot of work and is gonna be a bitch and is gonna probably feel lonely. And I say this because I'm actually living it as we speak. But to be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. I really wouldn't have it any other way, because for the first time in my life, I truly listened to myself and to my gut, to my intuition, and I enjoy that silence. There is a fine balance where you have to not go into isolation, obviously, but I really am enjoying that silence, because it's like I know where I stand with this person. I know how they see me, how much they value me versus how much I value them. And obviously, you know, people have their own loads of shit and their own load of transition and everything. But you do realize that you don't have to, it's like pick your battles at the end of the day. You're not going to have the same conversation over and over with everyone. You're just going to pick your battles. You know that with certain people, you're just going to have that talk. And with other people, you're just going to be like, hey, it was great. Thank you for joining this ride. And we'll see each other maybe later, maybe not. But I take it more as an opportunity to also be grateful for the friendship, the relationship, the dynamic, and that's it. So again, it's information. And I think the last piece I said is protection. Let me just drink my coffee. From Nicaragua. Ça fait du bien. And I think it is protection. You know why? I truly believe in God, and I have faith, and I have always had faith that whatever was not meant for me was not for me. I never pushed or insisted. I mean, I did in the past, especially with romantic relationships, but now I'm like 35. I don't give a shit anymore. But I do realize, especially I'm going to say with relationships in general, is that sometimes it really is protection. Because my mom always told me, if God has separated you from this person, it's because he knows what happens when you're not in the room. He knows before you do. So he's saving you at this very moment. So just say thank you, accept it, don't look too much, and just keep moving, you know? And lately I have come to just really integrate that, integrate that sentence and integrate that silence sometimes is protection, because I know that he has my back. So yeah, this is really this is the shortest piece ever when it comes to silence is protection, because there's nothing more that I can say about that. But yeah, this is what I am unlearning, you know, that silence always means rejection. No. Sometimes it is information, and sometimes it is protection. So that's it for today. I'm going to see you tomorrow for lesson number 7.